But on a much cheerier subject, hey, Jim Schwartz is our defensive coordinator.
There it is. Sacks galore.
Yeah.
And he's number 4 on our 32 and 32 list.
That's insane.
I actually think
that
it's
is
perfect.
Insane.
It is the perfect placement for Jim Schwartz.
It is insane that you have
yes, I do.
Jim Schwartz more important than all his players except for Myles Garrett.
I do. Do you want to hear why?
Sure, go ahead.
Get it?
Last season, regardless of who was at quarterback, the offense wasn't the reason the Browns lost most of their games.
It was part of the reason they lost.
Part
This
of
is
it.
being overstated.
The
Jacoby
defense-
Brissett's not that good.
The Browns' defense last year
Yeah.
was simply not good. Their run defense was atrocious. Absolutely, unquestionably atrocious. And while I agree with you, Bull, it is players' job to win games.
Yeah.
It is a coach's job to accentuate what those players do and get the most out of them. And Jim Schwartz was brought in here to shore up a defensive scheme and get the most out of Myles Garrett, JOK, Ogbo, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, Delpit, all the above. When I look at this Browns defense, exactly the same players they have. If Joe Woods was coordinator, G, I'd have some major question marks about this defense. I think at best, they could be pretty good. At best. You switch out Joe Woods with Jim
you're
Schwartz
overstating.
in this scheme with these players, I think the ceiling of this Browns defense is top 2, 3 in the NFL. I truly do. And in that reasoning, with that in mind,
So
I believe Jim Schwartz,
Yeah.
because of what he can do for these players, put them
Yeah.
in the right positions, make JOK not look like a guy who DeQuell Jackson says,
Yeah.
cut and send out, make Myles Garrett elevate his game from all-pro to Defensive Player of the Year, plus the other guys,
Yeah.
he
Let me-
is that
let
important
me
to
ask
the
you a
Browns
question.
winning and losing games
Let me
this
ask you
year.
a question here. Who was the defensive coordinator of the Eagles last year? Do you know?
Yeah, he's the new head coach in Arizona, Jonathan Gannon.
Gannon, right.
Yeah.
Their defense going down the toilet this year?
We'll see.
You think it's going to?
Good.
All depends on what they're running.
Yeah.
I think you're the idea that they got way better talent. There's no way we can compare.
That's true.
And I'm not a Joe Woods guy, obviously, but there's no way you can compare. I know people are going to do this. Look, we got Jim Schwartz. We're better on defense.
It is not apples to
That's
apples.
completely
Yes.
unfair. It's a way better
But let me
roster.
ask you this thing.
Yeah.
If this was the same exact players,
Yeah.
all the new additions, Za'Darius,
Yeah.
Thornhill, and Joe Woods was the defensive coordinator, what's their ceiling?
I think not that much lower than with Jim Schwartz. in my
Would
opinion.
they be as aggressive?
I don't know what they'd be. Jim Schwartz doesn't blitz that much, so what do you mean by aggressive?
Gee, do you want to educate this man?
Educate me, will you?
So, Joe Woods, bless his heart. He's a defensive coordinator, and I've tried to, when I talk to Tyvis about this, when I look at defensive coordinators, I like aggressive coordinators. Now, you could be aggressive without blitzing. Those things are mutually exclusive, right? Blitzing, you just bring in extra people, right? That could be considered aggressive, but the way you teach the system, the scheme, how you go about it. Sometimes, I'll give you an example. I used to play in high school. We played in a situation where the defensive ends will be outside the tackle and the tight end, kind of like in a wide nine. With that formation, nobody could run the ball. Like in high school, I was like 270 pounds. The other defense end was like 240 pounds, and we both were D1 athletes. So there wasn't really much you could really do. The next year, they decided to put us inside. They decided to put us inside the tackle and tight end, and then they wanted the linebackers to make plays. And I remember going to the coach and saying, why would you let linebackers try to make the plays where they've never shown you they can tackle somebody in the field anyway? I think we won a championship with me making the plays. Let me make the plays. Needless to say, that next year, my numbers went down, and we didn't win a championship. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, people don't understand is to be a coach, you have to put a person in, and sometimes you got to let go to let that player be that player. Myles Garrett has never, I repeat, never had a coach that said, Myles Garrett is the best defensive player we have. We need Myles Garrett to be unleashed and let him go run around and make plays. Lawrence Taylor didn't have somebody saying, stay in your gap. Reggie White didn't have somebody being like, hey, I want you to hold up people so linebackers can make plays. No. Buddy Ryan said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put more defensive linemen up there. We're going to come up with this thing called a 46, and Reggie White going to play anything he want to. That's what they're doing right now when you get a guy like Schwartz. Now you say Za'Darius Smith. You angle yourself and you run right in the face mask of that tackle every play. Myles Garrett, line up wide and go do whatever you want to.
I know this is going to be taken the wrong way, but I'll say it anyway. Let's not make it seem like Jim Schwartz is the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of football. I think we're getting a little carried away. He's really good. I think it's a great hire. I think he's better than Joe Woods. I think he's going to do a great job. If he's the greatest coach in the history of the world, why didn't he have a job last year?
It's all about. It's not going to be the greatest. It's all about. You don't have to recreate the wheel to unlock something.
But this idea that if they had the same talent with Joe Woods, they'd be mediocre. But with Jim Schwartz, they're going to be the best defense in football. I mean, that's overstating. Let's not get carried away.
Because sometimes when you sit there and you talk about a scheme, you have coaches that refuse to get out of their own way. Sometimes just getting out of the way is an upgrade. Coaches come in and they teach you what they want you to do, like A, B, C. I want you here, boom, boom. It's my system. And guess what?
So you think Schwartz is more important than every player on the team besides Watson and Garrett?
Well no. I think.
Well, he said no.
Well, here's the thing. I think he's important because that place that you guys wanted to get to with Myles Garrett, he's gonna give you that. Everybody said, I want Myles Garrett to, that's more. We got it.
Yeah.
You wanted to fix JOK, right? He's going to give you that.
Well, we hope. We don't know.
But that's why he's important, because he is the key to fixing a lot of the holes on this defense. Yes, they have better players. Totally agree with you. The defensive tackle position last year was an absolute abomination. They brought in defensive tackles who are competent, but it is Jim Schwartz's job to unlock the full potential of some of these guys.
Listen, I had Jim Schwartz high on my list.
Where'd you have him?
I think like top 10.
Watch him say 5. Watch him say 5.
It's going to be like 7.
Watch him say 5.
No, that's the wrong list.
Well, remember we did the day when Bull ran the 40?
I had him 10.
Yeah.
I had him 10. So, obviously Jim Schwartz is really important. But to me, to have him over only 2 players ahead of the defensive coordinator, to me that seems crazy.
And I'll give him a lot of credit for going out and identifying some of the guys who they needed in free agency. Let's be for real. Joe Woods had what he wanted, right? When Joe Woods said, I want this group of people, what did he go out and do? Got 5, 6 safeties. Because we heard about the vaunted 3 safety look. And then he figured out, well, maybe they can't even run what I'm asking them to run. And then we figured out the defensive lineman was terrible up front.
I'm just saying, the only options there are Jim Schwartz or Joe Woods. You could, if they had hired somebody else, whereas the idea that Jim Schwartz is more important to this team than Nick Chubb to me is crazy.
Here's the other part of that thing that you're missing.
You would cut Nick Chubb before you'd fire Jim Schwartz. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what it is. But here's the other part.
That's what you're saying. You're saying he's more important.
Well,
you're saying Jim Schwartz is more important than Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I do actually believe that. But here's why. No.
Could you find a D coordinator
who's as good as Nick Chubb?
Closer to Jim Schwartz than you could find a running back closer to Nick Chubb? Absolutely.
Probably. But here's what you're missing in this.
Yeah.
One of the main criticisms of Kevin Stefanski last year was he had no control of this team. He was so scatterbrained trying to help out Joe Woods on the defense,
there was
no
no
special
criticism
teams.
of that. He was criticized for not being involved with the defense. What are you talking about? You can't switch it up now.
I don't. Jim, am I going crazy?
Jay complained about that all the time last year.
No, I think
you know where I'm going with this.
I think Kevin Stefanski. I had a problem with him because he kept Joe Woods.
Yeah,
I was mad at him because he kept Prefer.
And now
guys keep bringing up Joe Woods. Joe Woods is irrelevant to the conversation.
But now with Jim Schwartz,
Jim
Schwartz is the defensive coordinator. He's the head coach of the defense. All Kevin Stefanski has to do now is focus on game planning, making sure Deshaun Watson has what he likes, deciding to go for it on 4th down or not, when to punt, and doing what a head coach does best in Kevin Stefanski's role, which is call plays and make sure the team's ready. He doesn't worry about the defense anymore.
If they would have hired Brian Flores, they could have done the same thing.
Not necessarily.
Yes, they could have. He was doing that with Joe Woods. What are you talking about? He got more involved because the defense was terrible.
I think
Brian Flores is not Jim Schwartz, though. Yes, when we had this discussion before they signed Jim Schwartz.
Then why didn't Jim Schwartz have a job last year? If he's just the best ever,
that's up to
why didn't he have a job last year?
Do you believe that?
Why didn't he have a DC job?
Teresa Walker, who covers the Titans, who's going to come back on before week 3, told us he was essentially running the Titans defense last year, but they had the young DC who had the title. They didn't want him to come in and supplant him title-wise, so he was the defensive analyst or I forget the exact title.
Why didn't they just make him the DC and tell the young guy to beat it?
And sometimes, when you say, why, if he was so great, why would everybody else not have grabbed him? Well, maybe everybody else is dumb too. It don't mean that. It don't mean that they smart.
Why doesn't Lou Adarumo have a head coaching job yet?
Maybe he's not a good head coach. I mean, Jim
he's
Schwartz was a bad head coach.
And he's a great defensive coordinator.
He is. I agree. This argument has turned stupid because I'm now trying to argue that he's not that great, which I think he is great.
You see what we did, G? That's called the alley, and G, what's the second back of that?
I just think he got him too high.
Hey,
That's
like,
all I'm saying.
like when Boone met his wife, his lovely wife, I'm sure you didn't think, I wonder why this woman is single. You said, I'm going to take that. I'm glad she's single. Then congratulations.
I love Jim Schwartz. I think he makes a huge difference.
That was good, G. That was good.
I think you're overstating the importance, to some degree. I would have him at 10 and not at 4.
I will give you this. I do have a problem putting people that don't play on the field higher than people who actually impact the game. In this case, I wouldn't have had him at 4. I had him somewhere between maybe 10 and 6. But I would have to have him on this list because I do think he's important.
I did, and I had him at 10.
All right.